No? Okay.
Uh-oh, someone pressed the start webinar.
Past few years, we've aligned with universities to alert them of the threat and support their efforts to mitigate the problem. Next slide. Karl Popper, a great philosopher of science, once divided the world into two categories: clocks and clouds. Clouds are neat. They are orderly systems with problems that can be solved. Clouds are messy. They are highly irregular, disorderly, and more or less unpredictable. Their problems are more complex to solve. The mistake of modern science, he said, is to pretend that everything is a clock. And I agree with Sir Popper when it comes to IT security. We live in a world of clouds, and it's a highly disorderly mess. There are a lot of bad actors trying to do bad things to our system, and it impacts all of us. Next slide. There are several key problems we face daily pertaining to digital piracy. The complexity of networks for both publishers and libraries, misconceptions on threats, privacy, and security, the timeliness of adoption rate of tools, the broken or lack of trust and the transparency with partners, finding a shared and common space to discuss these problems, regardless of which character you are. There isn't a simple solution to these complex problems for all the characters in a story. But as Coco Chanel said, simplicity is the keynote of all true elegance. And SNSI was formed to identify elegantly simple solutions to these problems, and more importantly, facilitate the other conversations needed in our cloudy world. Next slide. So Elsevier joined to help both ourselves and others. We know we can't do this alone. Part of SNSI is made up of technical and university working groups. The technical working group scopes out the problem collectively. Oh, sorry, did I say next? Oh, yeah, we're good. Presents an opportunity to share threat intel as well as resources and tools, discuss alternative ways for customers to securely access publisher platforms. The University Relation Working Group does education and clarification on misconceptions of problems. We connect and partner with organizations such as OCLC, EDUCAUSE, and JISC. We also expand our outreach to IT security, our transparency with partners, and work collaboratively to establish trust. Next slide. So I agree with Karl, this is not an easy task, and ours is a world of clouds, and we need conversation to help bring order to the chaos. Thank you, and now I'm going to turn that over to Juan.
Thank you, Sari. So thank you for everyone for being here. Just a little bit about myself. I am a librarian, the engineering and computer science librarian at Syracuse University. And I kind of began this whole working with cybersecurity when I started working at Binghamton University as the sysadmin and help desk. And back in 2016, Sari had contacted me. At the time, she was working for IEEE. And what was happening is we were having breaches. Sci-Hub and others were breaching our Easy Proxy server, and user accounts were being compromised. And what was happening is we were having illegal downloads. So I began by working with Sari and learning about the whole issue with compliance and cybersecurity and keeping things secure. So what happened was I created this kind of script that would help combat that. And from there, I transitioned to work at SUNY Oswego in the Discovery Services Librarian. And I continued to work in a role of securing Easy Proxy, working with our IT, and keeping in contact with Sari. And then what happened was that Sari contacted me about this group, and I was kind of excited because I still believe in cybersecurity and IT and librarianship and libraries. So then I moved to Syracuse University, where I don't have an active role, but since I'm on this working group, I feel like I have an active role in the community. Next slide, please. So just to give you a quick brief background on how this breaching happened was basically by looking at this chart, you can see that all the spikes there with the number of downloads and which was happening prior to that. And then when I implemented this program, this script to kind of combat that in 2017, you can see the drop off that drops off to basically zero. So that's how I got involved in this. Next slide, please. So SNSI, what we did was we contacted a company that did this study, this report, and I just want to share a few things that we learned from this report. In this slide here, it gives you a background of our polling, our responses, the survey. We had 278 responses. It's a small pool, but you can see that 94% were librarians, and then the others role within the academic community. It shows you the institution types, where it was globally, their sampling, and the age range. Next slide, please. So we asked them the question, how well would you say that you understand these issues around cybersecurity and data security? And what was interesting is 45% of the respondents said that they have a high level of understanding around the issue. You can see here students making their university network logins available to others. They understood that. They recognized that phishing was a big one that ends up how these hackers kind of use this kind of phishing tool. Next slide, please. Oh, this is just more of the slide. Next slide. Thank you. So then the other thing that question we asked was, in your professional life, what concerns you the most? And what was interesting here is we have security and staff, 37%, securing security of staff and student data. So that was high on the list. Cyber attacks preventing and learning. You can see here just the number of concerns with most. Next slide, please. And next slide after that. Okay, so then the other question we had was responders for Sci-Hub. If those of you are familiar with Sci-Hub, just a brief background of Sci-Hub. Basically, it's a website that gathers, downloads a lot of documents, or articles, resources by using accounts that have been compromised, easy proxy accounts that have been compromised from institutions. So the responders saw that Sci-Hub was a threat to their institution, but you can see here that they're not, it seems like they're not very sympathetic to it at its value. For instance, sites like these are breaking the copyright law, but should be prosecuted. So the interesting thing here, though, is the sites that put institution at risk. These sites are bad for publishers, but good for learning. So there was kind of this mixed kind of reaction that even though it's bad, it's still good in a way, which is not really the case. It's kind of mixed feelings because people are saying that we know they violate copyright laws. We know they're committing illegal acts, but somehow it's good for the community, they felt. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's going to talk a little bit more about cybersecurity. And thank you, Dan. Take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Juan. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Ayala. I am I'm a 25-year information security professional, and I've got a security consultancy to do virtual CISO and chief privacy officer work for smaller organizations and institutions. But I'm also helping on this SNSI project because my background brings a number of different areas that are pertinent to this discussion. I've spent time in scholarly publishing as a chief information security officer. I've spent time in higher ed as a chief information security officer, and I have a strong technology background, specifically in information security over the last 25 years. And I also happen to be married to a career librarian. So it's I've got a lot of I have a lot of different perspectives on this. And so when the SNSI project asked if I could help try and bring together communities, it was actually aligned with something I have a personal passion over, which is trying to bring the worlds of the information security, technology, and libraries together, closer together. One of the things that I heard, and if you remember the RA21 project, which is now Seamless Access, I was part of that project in its earlier days. And one of the things we heard consistently was that this phrase on the screen, and you can interchange library security and IT in both. The library team doesn't understand what we here in information security do, or that the security team doesn't understand what we do as a library, or how privacy impacts us, or why it's so important that we do certain things. And over the course of the last few years, and in my time in a higher ed institution, in the publishing and information world, it became clear that these organizations weren't, even within the university, didn't have strong relationships, but needed to be. There are a lot of commonalities between the intents of what the library does, of what the IT team does, and what the security team does. But many of them are rooted in very long-standing challenges. There aren't strong relationships there. One of the, some of the concerns that we hear regularly, especially from libraries, is there's ethical drivers. What are the ethical drivers of the library? Are they different than that of maintaining security? Sure, we know that there is this push and pull of security versus privacy. In order to get better security, we need to relinquish some privacy, and vice versa. System control. Libraries have long had our own systems, our own technologies, our own control over those systems, including access and authentication systems to library resources. Giving that control over to central IT doesn't come easily, and it comes with some concerns over what's going to happen with the data that's generated with them, and the serviceability, not fully understanding the things that go on in the library and the way that patrons operate. Or the special use cases that happen in libraries, things like visiting professors, walk-up users, et cetera. Those are areas of concern. The scope of visibility, how much can a security team see of what's happening in the library? Should they be able to see those things? These are valid concerns. Autonomy of the library, and then just these, there's strong centralization pushes on campus today, but there's also distinct pushback throughout the university on some of those efforts for varying reasons, including those, of the library, both over control, visibility, and service levels, and understandably so. But in reality, alignment of these groups is closer than ever. One of the things that I've noticed over time is that there is this common draw toward ensuring good quality research. And this, in the library, it's about enabling and facilitating the research in an easy, methodical, and consistent way. In the information security side of the university, it's about making sure that the information collected continues to stay accurate, that it's not compromised, that it's not accessed in an inappropriate way. So there's different sides to the same problem around research integrity. And then the long-term storage of data as content is being increasingly asked to be made available after publishing through institutional repositories and others. How do we make sure that the content that is made available in those stores remains as it was when given by the researcher? These are common goals that we have between information security, IT, and the library. Same with data protection against unauthorized disclosure. Information is university information, especially pre-publish. It's important that only the people working on it, or the right people working on it, have access to it, because it could taint, tarnish, or expose the research before it's ready, or create false information in the world if disclosed too early. These, again, are common goals between IT, information security, and the library. Also, we're seeing the information security teams become far more steeped in privacy, in privacy as a rule, in the ethics of data and data collection, and of the compliance that goes along with it. Many institutions have strong privacy teams within their university IT security teams, or very closely working with them. Many times the university's security team also has a governance, risk, and compliance team that is looking at the various compliance aspects, from FERPA to Department of Defense or other funding body, or NIH, NSF, or other funding body requirements for security as well, that are helping to facilitate this research in a way that not only maintains its integrity, but also ensures the reputation of the university in the research that it publishes down the road. These are things, again, that all involved really have a common desire to do. The one thing that I think that, as an information security professional, that I learned most loudly from my time working with libraries and librarians over the years, is the need for ease of access to university-wide systems. Some of my background is in identity and access, but it's what I took away from my time with librarians, with looking at how researchers need to access content, the things we learned through the course of RA21 and seamless access, and the things we've learned since about university systems and getting access to scholarly content, getting access to any system. A lot of these concepts have now been taken into institutional identity management, pass-through authentication, reuse of a single sign-on, so you log in once in the day and it continues to be used, reducing the number of times, having a multi-factor authentication, but reducing the number of times you're prompted with it, so that you don't get bombarded or interrupted in your research and can continue flowing. So again, now the security teams have learned a lot based on the needs and requests of researchers and of the library. So now there's a much more common platform and common way of thinking. The second to last one here, around fast detection and response to attacks, comes from the increased visibility. The bigger that we see, I think we all want to have attacks detected quickly and make sure that they're responded to quickly and accurately. But the best way to do that comes from being able to see the most possible information. There is, I've heard many times, the concern that university information security teams are collecting lots of information and using it for other nefarious purposes, potentially nefarious purposes, or potentially exposing it back to, to other parts of the organization. One of the things that information security teams have become very cognizant of is, one, the usefulness of the data after a very short period of time. It becomes unuseful very quickly. The second is there used to be this desire to keep all of this information around for a long time. And we're actually seeing information security teams want to shrink that down. One, it's hard to process all of that information over and over and over, and we found that people weren't going back to it regularly. So you're actually seeing information security teams shrink the amount of time that they're keeping information. They're purging it regularly, and using it only in a short window to detect that something's happened. And so therefore, some of the concerns about having to produce it either to law enforcement or others that ask for it after the fact in a way that might put patron privacy at risk, that is reducing, and the beliefs are harmonizing between that of the library and that of the information security team. And of course, we all want to support the mission and fiduciary responsibility of the university. We want to use money effectively. We want to be able to detect and have consistent, good quality security response to prevent things like ransomware attacks, to prevent things like researcher data being encrypted either stolen and used or unrecoverable because it's not leveraging a good quality set of backup and recovery processes. All these fall into things that we want to make sure happen and we are all aligned on amongst these parts of the organization and institution. And so what comes from partnering? Stronger partnerships, we get better visibility, we get better detection, faster response. We use money better. Money is limited in the university. We shouldn't be re-spending. We can get volume discounts by buying as a university instead of different parts of the institution. Ease of access that comes with common authentication, but also the fact that the common authentication that you use for the institution now has value. It has more value. It includes things like grades. It includes things like HR. It includes things like access to research. So all of and it also contains additional security measures like multi-factor authentication, anomaly detection, and others, so that university can know quickly if it's being used, if it's been stolen and is being used by somebody that's not the actual student, faculty, or staff member. All of this helps the university in immense ways and gives adequate protection to all of the university's information, not just that of research. And more, as I said before, the fact that privacy is now more closely ingrained into the campus IT and security lifestyle. It's coming much closer to that which the library has held for a very long time. So we've talked already about what SNSI is and what we're trying to do, but one of the core pieces of it is actually a distinct effort within the institutions across the US, and a similar effort, hopefully soon in Europe, is to try and work to help libraries, IT, university IT, and university information security come closer together. We have an effort through EDUCAUSE today, if you or your institution are part of EDUCAUSE, where we're actively working with university librarians, CISOs, and CIOs and their leadership teams to try and help each other better understand and create artifacts that we can share to other institutions. We have a good membership of that today, and growing. If you're an EDUCAUSE institution, please do go check it out. It's the Library IT and Security partnerships community in the new community portal. Please join. We're going to have regular monthly meetings just to try and learn from each other. We have active CIOs, CISOs, and university librarians up and down the stack, and from East Coast to West Coast, large and small. So please do join, because we want to get the benefit of your experiences, either things that have prevented strong relationships between those three parts of the institution, or those that have made it stronger.
Thanks, Dan. And thanks, Juan. I think now at this point, we're ready to answer any questions, and or have any feedback or comments. Welcome any of those choices. I don't know if I guess if you're online, you could put them in the chat. I'm not sure how it's working in the ballroom, if you're in the ballroom.
All right. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the three of us, and we'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, and you can also log on to the SNSI website. It's SNSI. I think, Dan, if you can throw that in the chat, that would be great for the website. And so you can also join there if you're interested in learning more or joining one of our working groups. We're happy to have volunteers come in like Juan did as well, to join in the conversation. So, so we're happy to have you. I guess if there's no other questions, I guess maybe we could.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your conference.